This is Hong Kong Free Press coming to you live from the main chamber of the Legislative Council of Hong Kong. Protesters around 30 minutes ago have successfully broken into the gates and have got into various areas in the Legislative Council. Now, what we see here is the main chamber of the Legislative Council, where lawmakers would normally hold their meetings. We see here protesters have spray painted black the symbol of the HKSAR. They have also opened umbrellas to avoid having their appearances recorded by media. Beneath the Bohemia flower spray black are the words "Release the martyrs" and "Withdraw." What we will assume they were trying to say is withdraw the extradition bill. Those are the two major demands by the protesters. A protester has apparently put up the flag of colonial Hong Kong at the stand. That is the position where the Legislative Council President would normally preside over meetings. Either side of the stage, we can also see that there are other political demands spray painted onto the wooden paneling. For example, there are the words "Cancel the functional constituency of Legislative Council." There's also a reference to the sunflower HK, perhaps a reference to a Hong Kong equivalent of the sunflower movement in Taiwan. Again, we see here more of the core demands by the protesters: release the so-called martyrs, meaning people who have been arrested by police related to their protests, and also anti the extradition law. There's also the words here down below which calls for real universal suffrage. We can see here that the Legislative Council main chamber, which is normally only reserved for electoral meetings, is now filled with some protesters and a significant amount of reporters who are mostly in yellow vests. Protesters have been trying to break into the Legislative Council for the better part of the afternoon, first demolishing some of the glass walls and glass doors on the exterior of the Legislative Council complex. When the glass walls and glass doors were broken down, they were faced with a closed metal gate, which impeded their progress. After hacking and hours, they managed to enter the Legislative Council through various entrances around. So just to recap, about 5 to 10 minutes ago, there were protesters who climbed up the central seat, which is the seat of the Legislative Council President, and have reached up to the Bohemia flower, the symbol of the HKSAR, and spray painted it. Just to recap for viewers just joining us, about 5 to 10 minutes ago, protesters climbed up on the seat in the center, which is the Legislative Council President's seat, and climbed up and spray painted the Bohemia flower black. And the various slogans which are spray painted on the wall are to do with releasing the so-called martyrs, which are people who have been arrested in relation to the protests, withdrawing the extradition bill. Here on the right it says Carrie Lam step down, and also there are calls for genuine universal suffrage. Now it appears some of the protesters have taken to the seat in the middle and appear to be looking at materials on the desk, but they have not yet said what they were looking for or what they plan to do next. This is the Legislative Council main chamber where the lawmakers would typically meet on Wednesdays. As you can see now, there are many people in yellow vests. They are mostly reporters. There were more people, more protesters earlier, but some of them have exited the chamber. Portraits of the LegCo presidents over the years have been vandalized. As you can see, the portrait of the current Legislative Council President Andrew Leung is no longer on the wall. It has been taken down, and the frame here on the ground. So we're looking at the vandalized portraits of the Legislative Council over the years. And there are reports of protesters who are traveling all across the building. We can see that there are protesters gathered in the lobby of the Legislative Council, and they have hung a yellow raincoat on the wall, presumably in commemoration of the people who have died in connection to the protest. There are also appears an egg has been thrown. More eggs. But it appears that some kind of liquid has been thrown against the wall. The barriers that you can see on the ground are brought inside the legislature by protesters. They were not here previously. It seems that the protesters have brought the fortifications inside the legislature with them. And on the wall there you can see again spray painted calls for Carrie Lam to step down, as well as for the so-called martyrs, people who have been arrested, to be released. We are now on the first floor of the legislature, where the main chamber of the legislature is. We have seen potential messages from protesters about the possibility of going to other floors including to the floors of the offices of pro-Beijing lawmakers. And it has not yet been confirmed whether they will be doing so, but there have been messages telling protesters that, for example, pro-Beijing lawmakers have their office on such and such floor, and we have protesters. There are no signs so far of police officers in the building, not that we can see anyway, and there also appears to be no security personnel. The protesters are moving quite freely, and reporters are moving quite freely all across the building, it appears. We will remain here for the time being in the main chamber where protesters have earlier came in and spray painted or defaced the podium. It appears that we now have protesters who are resting in these chairs normally reserved for lawmakers. Here we see what remains of a very symbolically charged act by protesters some minutes ago. The protesters have mostly left now, but earlier a group had climbed onto the seat of the president of the Legislative Council, and they have spray painted black over the Bohemia symbol, which symbolizes the HKSAR. There are also spray painted slogans calling for the retraction of the extradition bill and also the release of the so-called martyrs, meaning people who have been arrested in relation to the protests. On the right here, we also see in big words, Carrie Lam step down. And on the left, we see also other political demands, such as calling for genuine universal suffrage and the cancellation of the functional constituencies of the Legislative Council. We should note that this protest action at the legislature comes on the same day as a massive protest march from Causeway Bay to Admiralty, the annual July 1st march. But it appears that that march, the participants of that protest march and the participants of this action of gaining entry in the legislature appear to have different political beliefs, or indeed their methods differ quite widely. At the front here, we should also note that some protesters have unfurled a flag of colonial Hong Kong, the old British colonial flag. there is now a new banner. There's a new banner entering the main chamber. The banner says there are no rioters, there are only authoritarian policies. On the other side, it says there is no path to retreat. It says that we are now in a very dangerous situation and there's no path to retreat. Again, on the other side of the banner, it says there are no rioters, there are only authoritarian policies or authoritarian regimes. This man is shouting, take back the legislature again. Take back the legislature again, and Carrie Lam step down. This man is now shouting anti-extradition bill. This man is shouting anti-extradition bill, down with the extradition bill, and his call is being echoed by protesters at the back of the chamber. He's now calling for the release of people arrested in connection with the protests. Now calling for Carrie Lam to step down. This man has just said, today we have finally taken back our legislature. He's now restating their demands. This man, who appears to be one of the protesters or a representative of the protesters, have just restated the 4 major demands of the protesters. So the major demands that he restated were withdraw the extradition bill, Carrie Lam step down, release of all people arrested in relation to the protests, and also demand responsibility for the police actions. And this man has also said that aside from the 4 major demands that the protesters has made, he has added the 5th demand, which is to eliminate the functional constituency of the legislature. And in relation to that, the 5th demand is also to have real democratic elections. This man has just said that we are not here to have a visit. We are not here to make ourselves feel good. We are here for a long-term resistance, and it is important to plan to stay here for a long term. And he also called on other protesters to call their friends to continue to come into the Legislative Council complex. We also see that there has been more graffiti or spray paint on people's desks, including a profanity. Just to recap for viewers joining us, we are here at the main chamber of the Legislative Council, where about an hour ago, give or take, about an hour ago, protesters managed to break into So it appears that some of the protesters are resting at the back of the chamber, possibly formulating their next steps, having a meeting to discuss their next steps. Here we also see spray painted on the wall a question, a rhetorical question about whether the debt of blood, did you repay the debt of blood? This is potentially a reference to the people who have committed suicide, who have said that they were doing so to spur the movement onward. And the protesters have written, have you honored that last wish of those people who have killed themselves in connection to these protests?
吃的吗？
都有嘢食啊！好啊，可以過嚟攞啊！阿明哥應該咁你同阿明哥自己。
Now we are going to walk to different parts of the legislature building to see the extent to which that protesters have made it their own. The fire alarm has been pulled and has been pulled for quite some time. It appears that a number of protesters are still entering the building, and there are a number of protesters who are still walking up the escalator, still people trafficking in and out of the building. And as we have seen earlier, there has been a yellow raincoat hung on the wall of the legislature. It appears that various meeting rooms, various meeting rooms, including a dining hall, has been entered. Some furniture seems to have been knocked over. There's been not much visible damage except for some pieces of furniture being knocked over. Somebody has pressed the button for the quorum bell, which no doubt is being pressed by protesters, as there is no meeting. That the office of some of the staff has been entered as well. It seems legislature. The floor of the legislature hosts a number of conference rooms. There are some signs of damage, but the door remains locked. We're now at an observation gallery in the legislature where we can look out to Tamar Park outside. There are hundreds of people gathered outside in Tamar Park. It might be slightly difficult to see due to the dark, but there are hundreds of people gathered outside here. This is normally known as the protest area of the legislature. to the legislature. We're now right next to the Legislative Council library. It seems that protesters have gained entry into the library also. The front door of the library, which is made of glass, has been shattered. Nevertheless, there appears to be a sign that says "Protect the books, do not destroy." In English, it says "No damaging books." Here we have spray painted on the wall right outside the library, a regime that kills people. We're now approaching the metal gate. As you can see, there is a crumpled metal gate in the background. A crumpled metal gate in the background. Protesters used over an hour, closer to 2 hours, trying to smash through this metal gate. A great deal of graffiti. We can see that the ground floor, much of it is quite defaced. Here, the name and logo of the Legislative Council has been defaced, and underneath there is a slogan, "Carrie Lam, step down." We will now attempt to return to the main chamber of the Legislative Council, which has been occupied by protesters. Charges. It also says release of protesters who are trying to head up from the ground floor to the first floor to reach the main chamber of the legislature. We're now in the antechamber of the legislature, which is normally inaccessible to members of the public. Protesters seems to be resting here in this area, the antechamber of the legislature. It appears that metal barriers are being moved inside the legislature. The protesters brought these with them from outside in Admiralty. We have spray painted here on a column right outside of the main chamber that says Hong Kong is not China. We have now returned once again to the main chamber. That was just a fire extinguisher being thrown. We have now returned to the main chamber of the Legislative Council, which is still occupied by protesters. We previously saw footage just now of protesters who climbed on the the podium of the President of the Legislative Council and defaced the emblem of Hong Kong, the Bohemia flower. And here we will end our live stream. The Hong Kong Free Press will continue to cover the ongoing developments at the legislature and other protests around the city. And if there are other developments at the legislature, we'll be sure to have updated coverage. It appears right now that a protester is erasing some of the graffiti previously written by others. Protesters continue to occupy the main chamber. Some of them are resting, some of them are deliberating their next steps, and we'll continue to bring you updated coverage.